Now, welcome back to this other episode of the People's Mirror. And today, the top trending stories in the Kenyan political space are a lot, including but not limited to number one. First, the passport saga that has now been exposed by the People's Watchman and the People's President, Honorable Boniface Mwangi, that we will play for you just shortly, and we will also display the images that he's talking about. Now, in this saga, apparently what is happening is that the Kenyan passport is being issued to foreigners to move around, and some of these foreigners are foreigners in the blacklist of some of the foreign countries. So because they cannot use their own country's passport because they have been barred from traveling abroad, allegedly, now they're using the Kenyan passport, and that story is exploding, and it has caused a lot of shockwaves. Away from that story also is the concern that is around this gentleman called Omwamba, who was arraigned yesterday at the Kahawa Law Courts for charges of being part or being accused to be part of a human trafficking saga that so job seekers leave the Kenyan space to be in the front line in the Russian army. We'll also bring for you that story in just a bit. Finalizing in this episode, we'll also take a look at the gentleman called Katwa Kigen, who was just made the senior counsel the other day, about a month or less ago, when they were conferred the position of senior counsel by President William Ruto, and shortly after that he was appointed to become the Court of Appeal judge, and within just 2 weeks after the appointment of Court of Appeal judges was just done the other day, and he has not even finished his training in the requisite platforms of training for judicial officers. In that rank, he is now being shortlisted as one of the hopefuls for the Supreme Court seat. So we will also the Supreme Court judge seat. So we'll also bring for you the legal ramifications around that story, and also the political ramifications around that story. And if this is the first time that you are interacting with our channel, the People's Mirror, perhaps you've seen our stories before, but you have never really interacted with the channel, please hit the subscribe button so that stories like this do not escape you, and also you help in our journey and growth. And actually, if you have been a member of the People's Mirror, you are a consumer of our stories every day, please just like and share the video so that more people can join the platform. Now, first things first, ladies and gentlemen, let's just get into the stories. It's a very chilly morning. Let's uncover these stories for you, so that in your comfort, the comfort of your home in this chilly morning, or at your workplace, wherever you are, you also get to be timely informed. And we're going to start first off with this story of Boniface Mwangi that we are now putting in your screens. Now, what you're seeing in your screens right now is the list. Perhaps you're wondering, what is this list? Now, that is the list of foreigners, according to Boniface Mwangi, who have actually been given the Kenyan passport to tour the world. Specifically is number 6 in that list. If you take a look at number 6 in that list, you will see a gentleman called Wicknell Chivayo, and you can see all the details there. Number 6, we are there with you. Yes, you can see Wicknell Monodaini Chivayo. Application type is new. Passport type is an ordinary passport. Loading date was on 8th July 2025. So we detailed an episode here talking about this guy Chivayo, who comes to Kenya a lot and is being seen with a lot of candidates, presidents across Africa and Eastern Africa, but who also has a criminal story behind him from his country of origin. Later on, we will take you through the numbers down there that is talking about Zara Madan, Adila Madan, and Zarwa Madan, and why they are special for this particular coverage. But before we talk about that list entirely, let us listen to this particular news bite of the super journalist Yvonne, who covered this particular story, detailing more into it before we make our political comments.
Let us begin tonight with a leaked internal document from the Directorate of Immigration Services revealing a shocking trend by President William Ruto's administration to dish out Kenyan passports to foreign individuals for what can only be perceived as private and personal purposes. From a high-profile Zimbabwean entrepreneur to high-ranking figures from the Sudan Rebel Rapid Support Forces, the list of questionable issuing of Kenyan passports is growing long. Political activist and presidential aspirant Boniface Mwangi blew the whistle today, posting on social media the alleged leaked document packed to the list of foreigners who are now Kenyan passport holders.
Now you see, even before we go into the names that Bonnie will be talking about shortly, and we will also play in this particular news bite, let us put things to context. Now, how do you even attain a Kenyan passport? For you to apply for a Kenyan passport, you need two primary documents. You need your birth certificate and you need your national ID. So primarily, for you to apply for a Kenyan passport, other than the 7-year residential card that is put for other foreigners who receive the stay within the Kenyan space, if you're applying for the Kenyan passport, you need to have your ID and you need to have your birth certificate. So the Kenyan passport is like the international identity of the Kenyan citizen in the international stage. And for you to get that international identity as a Kenyan, recognized diplomatically as a Kenyan citizen in whatever international stage you're working on, it has to start here. It has to start at home and it has to start locally. And in the process of starting at home, you must first establish that you are a Kenyan citizen, preferably by birth. And then if you are a Kenyan citizen, either through dual citizenship and such like things, then there's a process that you have to follow. So let's go by birth. The normal way of obtaining the Kenyan passport, you require your birth certificate and you require your national ID. And then you go through the application process that vets you and verifies that you're actually a Kenyan citizen and that these documents that you are supplying for the purposes of obtaining the passport are real documents and they are not forged documents for that purpose. And then after the entire process, the immigration department, after they verify this entire thing, they issue you with a Kenyan passport. Now, ordinarily, that's a path that is often followed by Kenyan citizens, requiring an identity through their Kenyan passport, international identity, to use that particular passport in other spectrums. Now, we are witnessing rather a scenario where individuals who are not Kenyan citizens get to obtain this particular passport. And now, according to Honorable Boniface Mwangi, who is a presidential hopeful and who is a whistleblower in the Kenyan political space for a lot of things that he has whistleblew before, now he's bringing it to our attention that foreigners who have the mark on their names from their respective countries and who cannot visit certain states because of their involvement either in corruption, their involvement either in crimes against humanity, their involvement in fraud and such like things, now get a chance to access the international world and access the international stage using the Kenyan identity. Now, the process of acquiring this international Kenyan identity is flawed and it is being questioned locally because certain individuals that are being mentioned are way far from being Kenyan citizens. They are not Kenyan citizens through dual citizenship. They are not Kenyan citizens by birth. And their only connection to the Kenyan citizenry right now is the business that they do with certain men in government. Now, you see, a government is a contract of 5 years. After 5 years, the person sitting in that seat running that government and his cabinet goes away and the country stays. And so the identity of these individuals goes beyond the people that they are contracting with. And that is why the name of certain individuals, including family members of General Hemeti of the RSF in Sudan, and also the names including Wicknell Chivayo of Zimbabwe, now surface in this particular list as one of the names or some of the names or personalities that have now been given the Kenyan passport illegally and now have room to acquire the Kenyan identity abroad. Now, you know very well that Nigeria is one country that now has had its country or its citizens being blocked from accessing a lot of international spaces because of some fraud issue like this. And so this particular selling of Kenyan identity to people who are in the radar of international states and people whose background locally contains fraud, contains things like crimes against humanity, puts us at a very big diplomatic risks. Now, with that laying things as it stands, let's go back to this revelation where partially you will listen to Boni Mwangi and then we will go back to the list that now shows the individuals whose names shows a potency or portrays a pattern of illegal issuance of passports to people who are not Kenyan.
It's like our identity. Now, our government is selling our identity to foreigners for maybe the price of beans, or I don't know what's the reason why they're selling the passports to foreigners.
According to Mwangi, these individuals were issued passports unprocedurally. To get a passport in Kenya, one must prove that they are citizens by birth by producing a national identity card and a birth certificate. For foreigners, one must have resided in Kenya for at least 7 years and must be proficient in Kiswahili or English. They also must have made a tangible contribution to the country's economy or society, and their application must be gazetted.
Now, those are the conditions. If you are a Kenyan citizen, of course, it's it's birth certificate, it's your national ID card, and if, of course, you are a foreigner, then, of course, you must have resided in Kenya for a period of not less than 7 years, so you're a resident, and then other than that, you must be proficient in Kiswahili and English. You must have contributed heavily to the economy of Kenya, and other than that, all that stuff, your enrollment or your issuance with the passport must be gazetted. Now, you could argue that perhaps Wycliffe Chivayo has contributed to the economy of Kenya. I don't know to what extent. You can argue that General Emeti, for example, has contributed to the economy of Kenya. I don't know to what extent. But they are not Kenyan residents for a period of 7 years. We have just been seeing them come in and go out as guests. They have not resided in this country for that period. We have not seen tangible financial or economic contribution that has been done directly to our economy, unless maybe it has been done through some closed doors where accessibility has not been possible. But then if they have contributed to the economy, then that is something that needs to be in the public domain. Another thing, we really do not know their proficiency in English and Kiswahili as a requirement, but above all, there is no single day where the issuance of these passports to the alleged individuals was gazetted. Now, let's go back to Boni's list and see the names of the individuals that are being fronted out as individuals that illegally acquired the passport in Kenya, and then after that we also tie it with the posts alongside it so that we see what is really coming out of this thing before we do for you other episodes touching on Omwamba and of course Kigen. Now, if you go to Boni's post, and it's in your screens right now, ladies and gentlemen, the first post talks about the list, and here Boni says, here is the list of foreigners whom Evelyn Cheluget, the Director General of Immigration Services, has issued Kenyan passports to travel with. The orders to issue the passports came from the State House. Number 6 is Zimbabwe's Wycliffe Chivayo, who is supposed to help Kasongo steal the 2027 elections. To apply for Kenyan passport, you need a Kenyan identity card and an e-citizen account, and you have to pay. Yeah, and you have to pay. So he goes ahead to say whose account was used for this illegal passports application. Did they use a zero token where no payment was made? Why were the immigration officers told the applicants were very important persons and to issue express passports? So please Google the list of names of those Ruto gave Kenyan passports. Post what you find on the comments. Selling Kenyan passport is evil, but selling our passport to criminals is pure demonic behavior. Ruto must go. Now that is the post. And now you can take a look at the list in our screen. Number 1 is Sheriff Mohamed Osman Sherif Suleiman. 24th February 2026 is when that was his loading date. We have Ta Osman Ishaq Adam, Sidin El Sadiq El Mahdi, Omar Bashir Mohamed Manis. Now this is Omar Bashir Mohamed Manis, who is renewing. His is not new. Actually, his renewing is one of the names that Boni highlighted as individuals linked to RSF. Then we have Omar Bashir Mohamed Yunis. The top one was Manis. The lower one is Yunis now. His is new. Wycliffe Muhodani Chivayo is applying for new. Sami Ahmed is renewing. Elgony Ahmed is renewing. Stephen Buoi Rolyang new. Sami Ahmed new. Mohamed Eldawi new. Mayad Amdani new. Isabo Mohamed new. Abazar Ahmed new. Elgony Ahmed. Alhan Adin Abdirim. Taan Ulusin. Mohamed Asabo. Tagladin Ahmed. Abduradim Hamdan, Yagub Gasi, Ibrahim Ahmed, Fatima Eisa, Zara Hamdan, Adil Hamdan, Zaro Hamdan, Musa Hamdan Musa, and Algoni Musa. Now, the list of from these guys were unloaded on 18th September 2024 from Zahra Hamdan all the way to Algoi Musa Hamdan, whose loading date is 27th August 2024. All these individuals, 6 of them are actually linked to General Enmeti of RSF, that is South Sudan. And so the argument is, when it becomes hostile for them to use the Sudanese passport or the Sudanese passport to move through the world, now the Kenyan government has sold for them an identity that they can use as Kenyan citizens to move through the world. And so this list, according to Boniface Mwangi, has individuals who are not Kenyan citizens, but their names were issued under VIP stamps to the immigration services so that they be awarded the passport. Ladies and gentlemen, still looking at that list, something that is very, very interesting out of that list is, other than Wicknell Chivayo, the rest of them seem to be Muslims. All of them except Wicknell Chivayo. And so that also raises questions around it. Perhaps even Wicknell Chivayo himself is also a Muslim. So those are questions around it, questions around a specific community being given passports, and they are all foreigners. To what end? Questions of General Emeti being involved, questions coming at a time where northeastern, of course, and the borders of Kenya towards the Somali part has these conversations of infiltration, of course, of the border by other individuals. Now, Boni Mwangi went ahead and gave us even an example of the March 7th, 1996. If you take a look at this part now, let us just take a look at where he's talking about. He's comparing the current passport issuance to the Moi regime passport issuance quickly. So still in this post that is now showing in front of our screens, ladies and gentlemen, today we are doing much reading than listening, so that we understand what is really going on. You'll pardon me. So the British government introduced visa requirements for Kenyan nationals on March 7th, 1996. Do you know what the main reason was? After the fall of Somalia government, President Daniel Arap Moi's regime started selling Kenyan passports to Somalis. They would use our then well-respected passports to travel and file bogus asylum claims. Today, Mr. Ruto is selling our passport to warlords, Sudan's Rapid Support Forces. Algoni Hamdan Daglo Musa is facing US sanctions and shockingly is documented as holding a Kenyan passport AK1586127. He is traveling with a Kenyan passport to facilitate his international movements, buy arms and evade existing sanctions. The Rapid Support Forces, RSF, and their allied militias have been accused of committing genocide and ethnic cleansing against non-Arab communities through mass killings, summary executions, and widespread sexual violence, including gang rape and sexual slavery. So their documented atrocities also include torture, enforced disappearances, the recruitment of child soldiers, and the deliberate targeting of people with disabilities. Furthermore, the group has been implicated in war crimes such as the indiscriminate shelling of residential areas, attacks on hospitals and humanitarian workers, the looting of aid, and the use of starvation as a weapon of war during prolonged sieges. Our passport, our foreign policy, and our national pride are being sold to the highest bidder. Ruto's criminal regime is a total disgrace to Kenya. So this isn't just corruption, it's betrayal. Our nation's most sacred document, once respected worldwide, is now a tool of indicated criminals accused of mass killings. Mr. Ruto is auctioning our passports for personal gain. When I become president, those who sold our passport to warlords will be held accountable, and that day is coming. Now, Boni Mwangi is finishing there with his hope of presidency, which really is far-fetched in the current presidential race, really, truth be told. But we hope for a day when his presidency will come, maybe when it will or it will not. But as it stands right now, his revelation of this particular document is really sound, and I didn't want to actually dilute this particular episode with other stories. So you will find the Mwamba story in our next episode. You will find the Katwa Kigen story in our next episode together. Then in our subsequent episode, of course, we will find the Sifuna versus Sakaja fight that went down yesterday, and of course the exposes that is coming also out of Ndindi Nyoro. But as it stands right now, we have done this particular report of the expose, which is now the main talk that is going on right now. And as supporters and members of the People's Mirror, your input is really very important. So let us know in the comment section, what do you think of this move to have foreigners have passports? What do you think of the names that have been shortlisted? What are your entire thoughts around certain individuals who are facing US sanctions but are also part and parcel of that list? Let us know that in the comment section, ladies and gentlemen, as we move and keep having these discussions to actually make our country a better place to stay and make democracy something that involves everyone. It's a very, very, very strange thing that Kenya, which is a going concern, can actually be ruled that way. It's important to remember that the government is neither the president, because the president and his cabinet just takes a contract of 5 years renewable once. The government is not the members of parliament or the members of the Senate, because they also take 5-year contracts renewable as many times as their contractual mates, that is the people, decide. The government is not the courts or the judiciary, because then the courts and the judiciary also have a fixed tenure, upon which once the tenure expires, they no longer serve. Now, what is the government? As you ponder on what really is the government, let us also know in the comment section your thoughts in this particular story that now has the Amdans, as Musa, and as Chivayo as Kenyan citizens with Kenyan passports traveling the world. It's been an interesting one, recapping that story for you here, the People's Mirror. Keep it for a subsequent story detailing for you Kigen and Omwamba.